now.
All right, time 6:31. Call the May 13th, 2025 meeting of the License and Ordinance Committee to order. Members present, myself and David Lorman. We do, in fact, have a quorum. Do we have comments from citizens?
I don't see anything in the chat or any hands raised.
I don't see anything as well. We'll go ahead and close that and move on to the approval of the minutes. Does any member present have any corrections to the minutes as published? I do not. David, do you?
I do not.
Okay. Then I accept the minutes as published. Move on to licenses and permits. Item number 2, the application for a combination Class B beer and Class B liquor license by Trio Ramen, Wisconsin LLC, on Parmenter Street, Pei Wang, Middleton as the agent.
So new applicant here, the background check looks good. We really have no opposition. They're looking to serve some sort of specific drink that I cannot recall the name of, that I hadn't heard of before, but it is an alcoholic beverage. So that's why they were looking for the full license, and the city clerk says that we have some to issue.
Sounds good to me. No concerns at all.
Not from the public safety side.
Perfect. David, anything from you?
Nope.
Awesome. I'll move approval of the application for the Class B beer and Class B liquor license by Trio Ramen. Do I have a second?
Oh, Lorman will second. Keep me on track.
That's all right. Oh yeah, there's just the two of us, David. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right. The ayes have it. We'll move on to item number 3, which is the application for a combination Class B beer and Class B liquor license by Middleton 3669 Inc. for Applebee's and IHOP on 2269 Deming Way. Walter Salaveria Verona as agent.
I did invite Walter and encourage someone from the business to attend. I see someone just joining, but I'm not sure. Is there anyone on the call connected to this license app? All right. From what I know from the city clerk, so there's an IHOP at this location, and my understanding is they're looking to add some form of combination Applebee's that also would like a liquor license inside of there. I don't know much about it other than what you have in your packet, but I don't have any concerns from the police side on this, and the background check it revealed nothing of it.
Okay. And it's the previous location, I believe, had a liquor license as well. Before it became an IHOP, it was Abuelo's or PF Chang's, something like that.
The two, I think this was probably Abuelo's.
I think it was Abuelo's, but yeah. All right, I'll move approval of the application.
I'll second that.
Excellent. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 4, an application for an outdoor amplified sound permit by Laura Gessling for the city of Middleton, 7426 Hubbard Avenue for 6:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Bauman Community Pool, 2400 Park Lawn Place.
Recurring one standing sound permit, so announcements in the morning. We have not gotten any complaints about that early start time, but it's before you because of that start time, because it's out of kind of the standard ordinance issue. So, and I believe this one was also my fault. I meant to get this on last month, but I think we're still good with the dates that they have.
All right, perfect. David, anything from you?
Nope.
Great. I'll move approval of that application for outdoor amplified sound permit.
And Lorman will second that.
Perfect. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item number 5, Application for an outdoor amplified sound permit by Holly Schwichtenberg for Craftsman Table and Tap, 6712 Frank Lloyd Wright Avenue for a band between 5 and 8:30 p.m. for several Thursdays during the summer month. This is a regular occurrence at Craftsman for the summers, right? Or at least not the first time that they've done this.
Yes, I know that they did it last year. This is an expansion, I think, from last year, just including a few more dates. But hours roughly the same here, the 5 to 8:30. It did not present any issues for us last year, so I have no concern with them adding a couple dates to their calendar.
Right. Yeah, they're nice events if you get a chance to get down to any of them. They usually get pretty decent bands and nice crowd. Right? No, nobody rowdy that I need to be concerned about. David, any concerns or questions from you?
No.
Cool. I will move approval then of the application for an outdoor amplified sound permit at Craftsman Table and Tap.
And Lorman will second that.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 6, application for an outdoor amplified sound permit by Brandon Hellenbrand for Middleton Softball Commission, 6300 Mendota Avenue for a sound system between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. at Sorensen Dock and Field at 6300 Mendota Avenue.
Again, recurring series from previous years. They've been using that field for quite some time. We really have had very minimal complaints or issues. Really, it's there's one neighbor in the area that has had several complaints about generalities, but not specific to the amplified sound as the only issue. We have no issue or opposition to this one.
Okay. All right, I'll move approval then of the outdoor amplified sound permit for the Middleton Softball Commission.
And Lorman will second that.
Right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to number 7. Now, Tyler, just clarify for me if you would please, or someone, number 7 and 8, we should do separately because they are separate kinds of permits, right?
Correct.
One's
Right.
kind of changing the venue and the other's for a specific event.
Yes, let's do them separately.
Perfect. Then item number 7, an application for an outdoor amplified sound permit by Jonathan Salisbury for Monk's Bar and Grill on 8313 Murphy Drive for a band between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. on June 13th of 2025. Is this new?
This is, and Jonathan is on the call. This could be a little bit of a lead in here. My understanding is this is for a small band, obviously on this specific date, and I'll defer to Jonathan to fill us in if that's indoor, outdoor, or kind of what the plan is.
Great.
Yeah, the plan is for indoor on the existing patio that we have. We're not looking to add seating or significantly increase any of the, I guess, the area in the parking lot or anything like that won't be used.
Okay.
Well, Lorman will make that motion then.
All right, Madden will second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 8, the application for an entertainment club license by Altbury LLC, Monk's Bar and Grill on 8313 Murphy Drive, again with Jonathan Salisbury as the agent.
So for this,
Yeah, go ahead.
so I applied for the first one, and then Lori Burns let me know that there's a general license that needs to be applied for. So I submitted this shortly after the first one.
Okay. Are
All
you
right,
hoping
Lorman.
to do other events?
So we may, if depending on how this first one goes, we may have a recurring small band. I know that there's like a jazz ensemble that wants to come in and practice. It's not really going to be an event, but we would have music outside. So I figured might as well get the license in place.
Yeah. No, sounds great. Thank you.
And Jonathan, I had noted here in just kind of the brief for the committee from our communication, the intention is like 5 to 8 p.m. Is that still accurate what you're aiming for?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll recall, Alder Madden, we did approve an entertainment club for the Village Green as well. That was a little bit different, later night dance floor. So this is a much more scaled down and targeted issue. So there isn't any sort of dedicated security staff or any sort of plan. but given more of a small jazz ensemble in those hours, I think we're comfortable giving that a shot and kind of seeing how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, Lorman will make that motion.
And Madden will second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are number 9. Now 9 and 10 we can do together, Tyler. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So items number 9 and 10 on the agenda, application for a special event permit by UW Carbone Cancer Center, Paige Zizulka, the contact person, for Roll and Stroll Pancreas Center on August 10th, 2025 at Capitol Brewery, and an application for an outdoor amplified sound permit for the same event between 8:30 a.m. and 3 p.m. Again, August 10th, 2025 for the Roll and Stroll for Pancreas Cancer. But I know this is an annual event because I've done it many, many, many years in a row. Any changes from the last time?
No, it has stayed fairly similar. The 2-mile walk, a 5K run, a 25K, and a 50K bike, all of which are untimed. And then, yeah, start and finish at Capitol Brewery. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot more to share on that one.
Did they change either of the bike routes? Or are they the same?
Not from last year, no.
Okay, perfect.
Helps us out greatly that it's untimed, using sidewalks. That's clearly communicated to anybody. We haven't had issues in the past, but that's the big difference between this and some of the other ones that are going through intersections and requiring some police assistance. So given that it's a little more loose with it, it's much easier for us to be able to facilitate.
Awesome. All right, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve items 9 and 10, the application for a special event permit and outdoor amplified sound permit for the Roll and Stroll.
Lorman will second that.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. 11 and 12 we could do together, but should we do them together?
I think those would be fine together.
Okay. We'll go ahead and tackle items number 11 and 12 then. Application for a special event permit by Middleton Good Neighbor Fest. Adam Warner, the contact person for Middleton Good Neighborhood Festival, August 22nd through the 24th at Fireman's Park. And number 12, the application for an outdoor amplified sound permit for the same sound system, DJs and speeches and announcements from 8:30 until 11:59. Again, August 22nd through the 24th. And I know I saw Christy pop on my screen for at least a moment.
Yeah, Christy's on. Mark Opitz is on as well. We did have fairly similar plans to previous years. We did have a planning meeting last week, I believe, with the police department as well, to just go over some feedback from last year and just made a few tweaks to their traffic control plan for the parade. And also there is a potential proposed change in the 5K route, which was not the route that was included in the packet was actually not what we're potentially looking at changing. Precy Park is going to be under construction and the trail through it. So that's why they were looking at kind of a new, or actually maybe it's not a new 5K, maybe reverting back to one from previous years. But, and I just need to still run that by parks. It's just been challenging getting the updated map. But other than that, I mean, I'll let Christy or Mark chime in if need be.
Biggest change with that 5K is just.
I would just say, if we're talking about the sound.
Go ahead, Christy.
Oh, I'm sorry. As far as the sound permit, which was the first part of this, nothing has changed in that regard. So if there's two things on the board, we're fine for sound. We haven't changed anything.
Okay.
And as far as the 5K as mentioned, so the map that you have being incorrect, the new one that we went over that we were comfortable with on the police department side uses much more conservancy trails, would likely just require the one officer at Park Lawn Place, which is again easier for us to staff rather than the multiple officers that the other route would cover. So we appreciate kind of being amenable to change. Hopefully Parks doesn't see any issue with that either. Obviously, this is the most significant event for the city. Appreciate the organizers meeting with us last week, just kind of go over it to reiterate a few of our concerns, just to clean up a few things with traffic flow. We will have a number of staff available for both the mini parade on Friday and the large parade on Sunday, and working with organizers as far as billing and helping to compensate and recoup some of our costs for the weekend, understanding that we're certainly not going to get all of that back, and we don't intend to, and we get that as well. So just appreciate the open lines of communication with them and kind of making those few changes, and looking forward to it again this year.
Awesome, as am I. David, any questions or concerns?
Nope. Sounds good to me.
All right, I'll go ahead and move approval then for the number 11 and 12 application for a special event permit and application for outdoor amplified sound permit, both by Adam Warner for the Middleton Good Neighbor Festival, August 22nd through the 24th.
All right, and Norman will second that.
Excellent. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 13 on our agenda here, application for a temporary Class B retailer's license to sell beer by Middleton Youth Hockey, 7400 Lee Street, Brian Jewett, president, for again, August 22nd to the 24th, 2025 for the Good Neighbor Festival, using the approved plan. I assume the approved plan is the map of where the tents are and how everything is kind of separated off. Is that correct?
Yes,
That's correct.
and I'm not, correct if I'm wrong, Laura, I don't think there's any change with either of these temp Bs for the event. From last year was the first year that wine was introduced. That's why there's that second temp B. We kind of sorted through that issue with Matt's guidance as well, as far as having kind of multiple temp Bs for the event that did go last year, and there were no issues with it that I'm aware of for the police side of things.
Okay.
Yeah, the way that works, I think the only thing we want to make sure of is because of the ownership situation now with the park. So what makes the multiple temp Bs within a confined space work is that it is happening in a park. Now, last year we had a lease that essentially gave Fireman's Park, again, the status of a city park for purposes of this event. And so I haven't seen that come through. I hadn't even thought about it, but we should talk with Brian and revisit that with the fire company to make sure that's in place again, because we'll have the licenses, but then to be able to move around, having open containers in public, one of the exceptions to that is that it's in a city park. And so we will need to reinstate that status. It was a pretty simple little, lease agreement for the period of the event. So it shouldn't be hard to reinstate, but the approval of any of the temp Bs probably should be contingent upon that, either upon the city entering into an agreement to make this a city park, or otherwise they will have to be, each license area will have to be self-contained. That makes sense?
Yes.
I guess while I was sitting, I'm gonna see if I can find last year's agreement and maybe get a message to Brian before I forget about it.
So, but you think it's okay to go ahead and approve the licenses with that contingency?
I think so. Yeah. I expect everyone wants this to happen like it has in the past. I don't anticipate a big issue.
Sure.
And we err on taking this to Illinois out of abundance of caution. My guidance says, since it is a recurring temp B, it only technically does require city clerk approval. Our standing practice has been to bring it before you all, and good thing we did to catch an issue like this.
No, sure, sure. Tyler, can we approve both 13 and 14 in the same motion, or should we separate them as well?
I don't have an issue with that. Matt, do you see a concern?
No, not in this instance, given, it's same bunch and same event.
Same event, same location.
They're technically two different licenses, but yeah, that's in this instance, I think it's okay to put them together.
Okay. I'll go ahead and make the motion then to approve both items 13 and 14, the applications for a temporary Class B retailer's license to sell beer for the Middleton Youth Hockey, and the one to sell wine by the Middleton Optimist Club, contingent on the lease agreement that Fireman's Park is designated as a city park for the duration of the event.
Okay, Lorman will second that.
All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on, ordinances. Number 15, an ordinance to require aviation expertise for citizen members of the Airport Commission. I have the ordinance in front of me. Can I get a little bit, maybe David, you can provide some background for why we're making the change or potentially making the change?
Sure. Basically, a couple years ago, a little further back now, this was actually brought up by a former alder that was part of the Airport Commission, throwing the idea around that we should pursue maybe thinking about having some, we're using the term expertise, but as the language that is drafted in front of you is really trying to say we're trying to find people with aviation knowledge and experience to be on the commission. And when we went through this in our last commission meeting, I actually brought up kind of the topic of getting a little bit more specific with the language, but with Matt's guidance, we let the language stand the way it is. And I guess what I would point out is then we received some further correspondence and communication, from Alder Hanairo, raising some questions about, getting a little bit more granular with that. And I guess, the real reason, obviously, you'd want someone with aviation background, experience, and knowledge on an airport commission is because it's an airport.
Sure.
And a lot of the things we talk about are just very aviation centric. And we use a lot of aviation language. And we get into a lot of FAA rules and regulations and directives. And we get into a lot of rules and regulations and directives from the Bureau of Aeronautics. And it really seemed to make sense. If you look at other committees and commissions, you'll see Conservancy and Lands, Public Works, Plan Commission, Water Resource Management. They all have people that make up those bodies with knowledge and or expertise in that field. And the other thing is, it's really hard to find people with aviation knowledge because it's a very small community. And so we're trying to, open it up in a way so we encourage people, with any kind of background in aviation, also would want to get involved in the commission.
So it's more important then to have aviation experience than it is to be a resident of Middleton? Is that good? Is that how it's kind of, because that looks like how it's worded. It's like, hey, unless we can't find somebody to find this space, we'll have a non-resident.
That's how I have it drafted is that basically, experience is more important. Either as a city resident or non-resident, just because, as David indicated, there's just a lot of aviation specific stuff that is being recommended there. Now, I read Alder Hanira's comments, and she's not entirely wrong. Although, like I said, the three examples she cited all did suggest some level of heightened competence or abilities. Now, certainly for water resources and CLC, having appropriate concern and ability is certainly a little broader language than what we're doing for here. But, I also think, particularly since water resources now also handles stormwater utility and, CLC, there's certainly some specialty knowledge involved there, but, there's different committees. And like I said, even there is some suggestion of specialization, not as focused a specialization maybe as here, but this is a different committee as well. And just at least my view was in recommendations to the extent, they are at all persuasive and considered by the policymakers. It just seems like, this is a enterprise fund project, this airport, and what the council, in my view, seems to really need is more of the technical expertise and knowledge about how airports work and that aviation knowledge. And to the extent, not that any other airport issues don't ever arise that are maybe a little more broad concern, but it seems to me that those are things that perhaps alders of all different backgrounds have some ability to kind of gauge, and really what they're looking for is help and expertise in the operations of the airport. And so.
Yeah, and I feel like this is not all that unlike the recent change we made to the Ped Bike Transit Committee, right? Where one member shall have experience or expertise in, I can't remember exactly what the wording was but we made a similar change to that committee as well as the liaisons, correct? If I'm remembering that
Right,
citizen
right.
has to have that expertise. Yeah, so I don't really see that as all that different from what the airport.
Well, and this does, you have some pretty broad, I mean, really any sort of knowledge and experience relating to aviation that's specific beyond just what the general public have. I mean, that can still be pretty broad.
Okay.
So.
And where we did a little bit of hand wringing in this is, when you think about aviation, there's so many elements to it. You have pilots, you have airport management people, you have actual physical engineers who are responsible for layout and physical function design of airports. You have people who are dedicated to nothing more than the financing of airports because of the nature that basically 95 to 90% of our funding comes from the federal government. And those people alone are policy specialists. So how do you say, oh gosh, we'd like to have one of each of those kind of people on the commission, which would be great, but isn't going to happen. And I think that's what drove the broadness of the language. Now, if you look back historically at the makeup of the airport commission, just by virtue of the geography of things, there's always been, an aviator or two on it, right?
Okay. Sure.
Because there are owners, hangar owners and pilots, in the area that apply and that have been put on the commission over the years. And there's always been members that are not from Middleton, simply because of that. The other thing about airplanes is, airplanes don't fly in Middleton. Airplanes fly to and from Middleton. So, again, it represents the fact that people are from outside the area who are interested in aviation. They're, kind of in the county. It's very nebulous in that sense. So this is the language that was put forward, on our second attempt at this as a commission. Matt, I think, about that.
Yeah, at least second, yeah.
So and looking at what Alder Hanairo's comments were, I really appreciate what she's saying. I understand where she's coming from. She did spend some time on the airport commission as well. And she raised some other points in her email about some adjustments to the language of the current ordinance and makeup of it. Again, I'm looking to you, Matt, to really say, of these things, what is really substantive and what really just is moving language around so it reads differently for consistency. And I think you also saw what I sent back, just where Brian Gatto recommended some cleanup in some language.
Well, I think those issues are the other issues that Brian addressed. I think those are probably better dealt with in a separate ordinance rather than adding them to this.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I think consideration of the comments, like I said, I mean, the council may feel differently, want some more breadth, but I mean, I tend to agree that the airport is what it is, and having, that aviation experience being important, and I don't see it that different from the rest. But these other comments, I think probably this is maybe best to have me throw something together and send back to the airport commission to consider an ordinance to tweak these other two things or three,
Okay.
I guess, issues, and then move this one along.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I defer to your truly expertise in language. So I just think the spirit of having it in the ordinance, that it does need to be made up of a body that has aviators on it, but not exclusively aviators. And again, this falls on the discretion of the mayor. So what we're giving the mayor guidance for in the future is say, okay, you've got a pool of applicants in front of you, and they need to have aviation background, if possible. But if not, then you choose based on your discretion. And that's kind of the way I look at it. And there's some history to this because, Matt, cut me off if I'm going down a rabbit hole here on this, but there were some things that happened in the past where sitting members of the airport commission were simply removed midterm by a previous mayor, and the mayor elected to put themselves on the commission and reappoint other people, essentially changing the body.
Well, that might be something that gets discussed along with this other change that was suggested about the two alders and so forth. I'm not sure that has a lot of relevance to just having the citizen members have the aviation experience, but I do think that probably will be part of the discussion as we go back and address the other issues that Alder Hanairo's email raised. So
okay, and I think the reason it's two alders is probably because it's, having the alder that is the district of the airport. And maybe that's what drove some of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I'm comfortable with whatever the body recommends in terms of the language it stands or making adjustments to it. It's just getting the spirit of it into an ordinance.
So are you making a motion?
Well, I was throwing the question out there just, for more comment from you, Madam Chair, or anybody else listening.
No, I'm actually comfortable with the language as written.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, then I am happy to make that motion to accept the current language and ordinance as drafted for consideration by the Common Council.
And I will second said motion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 16, an ordinance to implement attendance standards of city boards, committees, and commissions.
Yeah, so this had kind of come up from various sources, but last was an email from Abby who indicated that this had been becoming a bit of a problem of on some committees, people just not showing up, and sometimes you don't have quorums, or you don't have all the input and so forth. So just to let you know, I mean, this ordinance is not necessary in terms to enforce any sort of attendance requirements. And so this will get to also, Alder Hnairo had commented on this about process. The reason why there's no process drafted in this is because there is a statutory process. Basically, any city, the boards, commissions, any officers appointed by the mayor and approved by the council in the city can be removed by the mayor if they're a person that is appointed by the mayor, even subject to council approval, can be removed at will for whatever reason by the mayor or by the council for cause. And so that would apply to most of our committee members, because most of them, with just a handful of exceptions, are appointed by the mayor with the approval of the council. And so the reason to have this is, because people don't necessarily like making those kind of decisions, and it does just sort of put a standard out there and gives a little cover for, well, hey, this is the standard and expectation, and gives a little bit more of a helps a little backbone to make that sort of hard decision. I did one of Alder Hnairo's comments, which was something that I hadn't really thought or noticed, was we had 3 consecutive regular meetings, or 2/3 of the meetings with a 12-month period is the standard. But I think what that was meant to say is 1/3, because we looked at a bunch of different ordinances, and I think the intention, someone said the expectation is that you attend 2/3, not miss, and just in the translation in this language we left the 2/3. So I would recommend it, because if you miss 2/3, I think just mathematically you almost have to have missed 3 consecutive meetings, probably at least 2 or 3 times. I would suggest changing that to 1/3. I think that was the intention there. Then the only other thing, as I reviewed the comments, another thing I might suggest that we add, just to be clear about how cause relates to this, is to say that it may be sufficient cause for the member to be removed from the body by the Common Council, and then add also that nothing in this paragraph is to be construed to limit the statutory discretion of the mayor or Common Council, citing the statute, to exercise or decline to exercise the power. Just so it's clear that, just because someone missed 3 or 1/3, for what if you have a committee that just didn't meet that many times and they miss 1? I want it to be absolutely clear that this is just setting a standard, and it would be considered for cause, but the discretion can be exercised to even if somebody misses those, that there's always reasons. And then rather than set up a whole several page ordinance about the way you determine whether there's cause and all that kind of stuff, we don't need to get into that, because it's, like I said, it's a highly discretionary, at least for the mayor in particular, decision to go ahead and make. So with those changes, I'd ask this be recommended for approval, unless of course you feel that really this sort of thing isn't needed because that discretion exists. Like I said, it's certainly not legally necessary in order to remove somebody because they're not showing up for meetings. It's simply there if you feel that this just helps, establish a little clearer expectation.
Yeah, Matt, so like let's take a hypothetical scenario. Individual just isn't showing up for the meetings, okay? And the commission, none of us members of a particular committee or commission know why that person isn't showing up, but they're not there consistently. I mean, wouldn't it be up to the chair to go to the mayor and say, hey, look, this person's not showing up, replace them? Now, the mayor might say, no, this person isn't showing up because family crisis, right? Takes time to sort out, but they really are a valuable member. They have expertise and knowledge and this and that, and and it hasn't gotten in the way of a quorum. We're always able to have a quorum, for example.
Right.
Um,
There's no end to the different
Yeah.
circumstances and that's why I would really, I mean, I'd much rather that this nothing like this get adopted rather than go in and try to create an ordinance that sort of predicts all the possible circumstances.
Because I'm really concerned about, almost call it discrimination. Because we don't know why that person isn't attending the meeting. And and what if something is going on in their life and it's their business? But
True. But of course, on some level too, it may be totally understandable. It doesn't necessarily mean it's an intentional or it's just being negligent in your duties. But I mean, bottom line is that you need to be in attendance to do the job, and this isn't like somebody's job where they're getting paid and you're taking away their livelihood. What we're talking about is maybe that's a situation where the mayor would say, listen, we need people there, and I understand what you're doing. You need to take care of your stuff, and when you get your situation taken care of, I would gladly consider you to be reappointed to this or some other committee. But for now, you just have other things going on. Like I said, there are just so many different circumstances that could be at play. Like I said, the statute just simply says the mayor can do it at will, which gives the mayor entire discretion to weigh all possible circumstances, and oftentimes it may just be political. They don't like what the person's doing. They can show up to every meeting, but if the mayor just decides, hey, wait a minute, I don't like this, what's going on there.
Right. Then we start writing ordinances that tell the mayor they can't do that, which
well, I'm not sure that we can take away the mayor's statutory powers, but we're not really debating that. But the point, the basic idea here is that do we feel that it's good to at least sort of set some kind of objective attendance standard to shoot for by ordinance, or do we feel that maybe we just need to make sure that both the council and the mayor know they have this power and leave it at that? That's really, to me, the policy decision to debate here. Then, of course, the secondary one is are the numbers that we chose correct? 3 consecutive, or should be 2 whatever.
Well, I now that I give it some thought, I'm quite hesitant to support an ordinance like this. The statutory powers are already there. This city and body has seemed to operate quite well for many, many, many decades. And if somebody thinks we're having an attendance problem, then I think it's incumbent on those individuals to talk to the mayor and have a conversation. And it's educating the common council and educating the city staff. We had a lot of turnover in the common council. We have new city staff, and it's an operational thing, not an ordinance thing.
No, I think I disagree. I like the fact that we have it kind of codified in an ordinance. When you volunteer for a committee, You understand right off that is the expectation, right? That you're going to go to all of the meetings. If you miss 3, or I would agree with, that's actually the 1/3 to 2/3. Matt was already on my radar. Like, well,
Yeah.
2/3 of a meetings for committees that only meet once every month might be it's a lot of meetings you could miss.
Right.
I mean, I would move. We can let the council discuss it, but I feel pretty strongly that it's important to have this sort of guidance codified into an ordinance, and I would make the changes that you referenced to, particularly to the 1/3, and that we're not limiting any of the statutory powers of the common council or the mayor.
So what I would suggest is that maybe since you only have 2 tonight instead of 3 that could break the tie, is that maybe a motion to forward to the council as as recommended with the recommended changes by the city attorney, forward to the council without recommendation from the committee, but with those changes.
With the changes, yeah, I would make that motion. Let the council talk about it.
Thorman will second that.
Great. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Can I just, for the notes, can I just get a clarification? So the changes are the 2/3 to 1/3, and was there a second piece of that, Matt?
Yeah, 2/3 to 1/3, and then the last sentence here. I'm gonna forward you the ordinance in just a second here, so you'll have that last sentence that's been added here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, moving on to item number 17, the discussion on potential barricade requirements for events held on enclosed city streets. This is our discussion from April, right?
Yes, I didn't throw anything in there, but I just wanted to give you an informal update and kind of bring David up to speed with some of the concerns that I brought up at previous meetings as we're looking at some of these events, art walk, significant street closure for an extended period of time. But even things like Mustard Day, where we're closing down a street and saying this is the place to gather, and really designating that as a spot. What we're seeing nationwide, there's a trend for these to be ripe targets potentially. We've seen that in a number of places. We've seen that in our state. Being at a number of training conferences and things, we're seeing communities, police departments, but communities as a whole pushing, and a lot of times it's under the umbrella of a public works department, to have some sort of more substantial barricade that could stop a vehicle. That could be put out for special events, things like parades and such. As we look at Good Neighbor Fest, obviously there's a number of streets that are closed. I wouldn't expect us to completely have a ridiculous budget and have barricades at every single one of those. But I'm picturing it more for events where we have that specific street closure, and obviously we could use these at Good Neighbor Fest for the larger streets to have a more substantial plan there. So we did meet over the last month. I some city planning staff and myself, including Laura, Abby Atun, and just kind of bring you up to speed. Some of the concerns, or I guess counterpoints that were maybe brought up. Obviously, cost is an issue. The fact that they can be defeated, and I make no illusions that if we were to get some sort of barricade, that it will completely prevent any sort of attack or vehicle from getting to a street. That's really not the goal of it at all. The goal of it is to harden and make it more difficult. And I see this as something that, whether it's an intentional act or perhaps even a medical issue with someone driving, we see that several times a year in the city where someone loses control, and I would hate to see that and see it headed toward an event. Obviously, that could be catastrophic. Some of the barriers we're looking at, just to name a couple, Meridian and MyFram barriers are two other Dane County law enforcement agencies and communities have purchased and gone with. I have some preliminary numbers there, but really things have kind of been paused given the onboarding of our new public works director. Want to sit down and chat with him and get his take on this as well. I envision this as something that could have a dual use. It could be a special event for the city and potentially a functional use for public works when they're closing things down for maintenance, water main break, and emergency, to make things safer for city staff as well. So logistically, there's a lot of things to work out. My overall goal, I would hope to see some sort of budget proposal before the council yet this year, which would have to come together pretty quickly here, given that time frame. But just want to keep you all in the loop or see if you have additional questions or direction kind of on this early stage of it. But that's kind of what's happened so far.
Excellent. Thank you.
Are these something where the city already has equipment and equipment in place where if we buy the barricades, we can move them around, or is this the kind of complexity where we have to, purchase trucks, vehicles, lifting equipment, to move it around the city? All I know is you see those concrete temporary things that are put up for construction and whatnot. Is it something like that, where it's a concrete?
They'd be
port?
much the few that I've looked at anyway, and there's first of all, there's a number of options out there. Anything's on the table, but there are several options where they can be manipulated by an individual person with a specific dolly. Many of these come with a trailer that's designed for it. For example, the Meridian barriers, I know Cottage Grove purchased 16 of them, so they're kind of individual. Each one is meant to shut down its own traffic lane, so you could put out multiple to close a street. You could potentially put one up on a sidewalk if you have a wider street and you're trying to prevent a vehicle from just skirting right around the street that way. Those literally one person with this dolly can move it and move it out of the way, which obviously another concern is we need emergency vehicles and fire trucks to be able to get through. First responders, public works staff need to be able to move those in a pinch. So typically these come with their own trailer that's designed to haul that and with that type of equipment, but it's not uber specialized, I would say.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I appreciate the proactive thinking about that. I guess I never gave it much thought what Middleton has or doesn't have in terms of capacity to, provide additional protection to events like this. I absolutely support the continued investigation of it and, what we need to do.
Yeah, same. Obviously, we're growing as a city, and we're all more and more of these outdoor events, and people love to go to them, and so we want to try to keep them as safe as we possibly can. So let me know. Obviously, report back. You get some numbers too, because like you said, if we're looking at a budget request, budget season will be upon us sooner than we want to admit.
You bet. Yeah, I can tell you just off the cuff from what Cottage Grove went with, it was under 200 grand. I think they split it over 2 years on a capital budget, kind of did an 8 and 8 sort of thing. So that's kind of the only one preliminary number I have so far, but I think we'd want to bring in some vendors, but I don't want to get too far into it without our new public works director being there, because I think we're going to, as a police department, I think we're going to need their staff help with utilizing these as well, as far as storage and deployment of things. I think that's a lot to ask of our officers to be the only department that could do that. So.
True. Awesome. Thank you, Tyler.
You bet.
Anyone else? All right. Well, it appears we have met or reached the end of our published agenda. I call the meeting adjourned.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
I'll see you online next time.
For sure.